All right, here's a fun fact. Can I find the live stream while we're in this section? Sorry, Gil, hold on one second. Fascinating. I don't know what happened to it. Can't find it. So we're just gonna start with you, Caleb. Pop on camera, I think, and we'll just start that way. Okay, great, thanks. I'm gonna hit record again and then we will live stream.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kayla Kim Vodopek, also go by Kim Nanju, she, her, hers. A short description of myself. I'm currently uh, wearing a bright red or scarlet red-ish dress. I have black frame glasses. I have long black straight hair. I currently have it half kind of up, half kind of down. Also presenting more like fair skin, Korean woman. I'm currently the executive director of Kata and calling in for the lands in the morning calm, also known as the lands of South Korea and Honok. And I'm so thrilled to be here with all of you today. So, as you know, we're gathering to support the next generation of artists and professionals within the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, the Swana, the Mena, and the mixed race theater communities. And this conversation is about guiding and mentorship and sharing lived experiences as students navigate and transition into the professional life. But before we dive into the panel, I want to invite the rest of the amazing team to introduce themselves. Kato would not be here today without their dedication of this wonderful team and humans, as well as our board. So thank you so much for our board members who are tuning in, as well as we have some board members who are part of our panel, as well as I want to kind of thank people who might not be here. And one of them is Jesse J. Hoon, who is helping us so much with the design and collaborations. So thank you, Jesse, for creating our graphics. And as well as our community partners, we have Hal Round for doing this live stream with us, Rutgers University, Harvard Asian Arts Project, and Stanford University. Very grateful for all of you and the continued support you have with us in Kata. So I'm going to pass this to Sarah, who's kind of going to give a little bit of overview of our 20th celebrations that's currently happening.
Kayla. So, hi, my name is Sarah. I use she, her pronouns, and I am Kata's Programs and Member Engagement Director. I'm joining from Queens, New York, which is the unceded territory of the Canarsie, the Montagnais, and the Munsee Lenape. We like to take a moment at the beginning of our programs to center on why we are gathering. So, this year is Kata's 20th anniversary, and we are celebrating this milestone with programming that focuses on the themes of legacy, resistance, and evolution. All of this year's programs, online or in person, are built with these themes in mind, so we can honor our past, examine our present, and dream for the future. The events are organized into four programmatic pillars that are spread out throughout the year. So, Kata conversations, like tonight's panel conversation, are panel discussions on a variety of topics and free to all to attend. So, again, thanks to HowlRound for hosting these conversations. Kata communities are in-person gatherings that are open to all in that particular area. We recently joined Heart AAPI in Washington, D.C., and there are more events planned for Boston, Chicago, LA, and New York, so check out our website for more information. Kata Connects are for Kata members only. They are scheduled throughout the upcoming months, and these virtual spaces are designed for members to connect and discuss more deeply on specific topics. So become a Kata member to join those virtual rooms. And our final piece of programming is the Godfather Prize and Playwrights Festival. So submissions are now closed, but more information is available on our website at kata.net. And I'm going to pass to my colleague, Kevin Burns, to share more just about the Godfather Fund and the fundraising campaign that we are running there. So, Kevin?
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin. I'm Kata's Grants and Development Consultant. Work on fundraising initiatives, grant writing, and things like that. I'm calling in from Austin, Texas, the ancestral homelands of the Tonkawa, Apache, Comanche, and many other tribes and nations. So excited to be here with you all. Thanks to HowlRound for streaming us. As Sarah said, we have so much planned this year. Digital gatherings, in-person gatherings, new amenities for our membership groups, and alongside that, we've set some goals this year to fundraise to help all of our programming. So in line with our 20th anniversary, we have set a goal of raising $20,000. All the money that we raise goes directly towards supporting staff and of course all of our programs like these today. So we'll share in the chat some links that you could either circulate amongst yourselves or follow to donate. Additionally, as Sarah said, we have launched the Godfather Prize and Fund. A big shout out and thanks to Roger Tang for initiating that and seeding that fund. I know he's on the panel this evening. Alongside that fund, we are also setting a goal of $30,000 to raise for that. Roger has very generously agreed to match every donation dollar for dollar up to 30 grand. So anytime you give to that fund, your gift is essentially doubled. We're raising funds there not only to have the prize sustainable for many years to come, but also the more we raise, the more we can give out in awards money in years to come. So lots of super exciting initiatives. Any support goes a very long way in making all of this happen. Thank you for being here with us, and I'll pass it back to you, Sarah.
Kevin. So, why are we gathering for this panel and this conversation? Kata exists because artists of AAA and AHPI, Swana, MENA, and mixed race identities need visibility, mentorship, resources, and community in a field that too often overlooks or fragments us. So this conversation is part of a larger one on how to support the next generation of theater makers as they navigate the transition from college into professional life. We've asked intergenerational pairs from specific schools to share past and current experiences, and you'll hear a little more from them on how this conversation came to be. Not every kind of theater worker is represented tonight. There are so many identities, locations, and kinds of careers in theater, and not to mention, not everyone may attend college, but connection on navigating the transition from college or just your early career into your early career is not limited to this panel or this format. So we know that many students are unsure if they should pursue a career in theater, especially in the current climate of insecurities. There are many of them, pick one. So wherever you are in the world, we just know that we center students and emerging artists, and we honor the professionals who have built pathways and shared knowledge and taken risks, often without guarantees or institutional support, to make space for the artists who come after them. So we are here to connect generations, share strategies, and build networks that sustain and strengthen our theater communities. So with that said, I am honored to pass it to our board member, Sophia Skiles, who will be facilitating today's conversation.
Thank you so much for that, Sarah. And that's so moving, just this idea of being able to gather with young and just incredible legacy and icon folks who've forged a path. I'm Sophia Skiles. My pronouns are she, hers. For visual description, I am a woman of a certain age, a middle-aged woman in my prime. I am Asian complected. I have short, sort of cropped black hair. I'm wearing black framed readers, and I'm wearing a black sort of sweatshirt against a background that looks like lots of books in the area. I'm also calling from the land of the Lenape, colonially known as New Paltz, New York, in the Hudson Valley. I currently serve as Associate Professor of the Practice at Brown University in the Theater and Performance Studies Department, where I teach a class that I've created called Asian American Theater Making, which is now in its third or fourth year. And I'm also the current head of acting of the Brown Trinity MFA program. I'm so excited to be here and just share this space with this incredible group of folks. And I'm excited for you all to meet them. We'll start with Roger Tang, also otherwise known as the Godfather of the Godfather Prize. Roger, can you share a little bit about who you are?
Thank you, Sophia. My name's Roger Tang. I use he, him pronouns. I am an older Asian male, short hair that is now white. And I am dressed in all cardinal red. Cardinal and the color cardinal as in school from Stanford, where I graduated from. And I have virtual background taken from one of my plays, She Devil of the China Seas, which I wrote and produced a couple years ago. I am currently executive director for Porkville Productions, which is based in on the lands of the Coast Salish, which is in the Puget Sound area of Seattle. But today, I am calling in from the lands of the Tonga, which is in Los Angeles, because I'm in Southern California to do some personal visits. I am seeing the one of the production of Flower Jones song by newly rewritten by fellow alum David Henry Wong.
Thanks so much for that, Roger. Emma, would you come on and join us?
Hi,
Hi there.
I'm so excited to follow up with a follow up, Roger. I'm Emma Hong, she, her pronouns. For visual description, I'm wearing blue headphones and a long sleeve black t-shirt. And I'm a young Asian American female. I am a Chinese American actor. Right now, I'm a senior at Stanford studying theater and physics. And I'm really excited to be playing nurse for Stanford's Romeo and Juliet soon. And then at Stanford, I'm artistic director of Asian American Theater Project, which was co-founded by Roger Tang, Nancy, and David Henry Huang. And I'm calling from the lands of the Muwekma Ohlone tribe, also known as Stanford, California.
Beautiful. Welcome, Emma. Julia, would you join us?
Hi, everybody. Super excited to be here. I'm Julia. My pronouns are she, hers. I am an Asian American woman wearing a tannish sweater, and I have long, straight black hair, calling in from the land of the Munzi Lenape people, also known as New York City. And I am a musical theater composer, lyricist, librettist, and a novelist. I wrote a musical called Dive that's currently in development with the American Repertory Theater and being directed by director Diane Paulus. And I've written a couple other musicals that are in development right now. And I'm the author of a book called Last Tiger, as well as a book that's coming out on Tuesday called Shim Chung Takes a Dive, which is based on the musical that's in development with ART. And I'm super excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much, Julia. Grace, come on out.
Hi guys, my name is Grace. I go by she, her, hers. Short description of self. I'm currently a young Asian American. I have on a like black off the top sweat or off the shoulder sweater with half up, half down hair. I am currently a sophomore at Harvard University studying economics and theater, dance, and media. At Harvard, I've directed some plays, stage managed, and I recently acted in a play that was sponsored by the Asian Student Arts Program at Harvard, which Miss Julia Ryu founded. So super great to have her on as well.
Thank you, Grace. And let's bring on our executive director of Kata, Kayla.
Hello, thank you for having me again on this panel. I'm also a Rutgers alumni. Again, Kayla Kim Vodopek, she, her, hers. Same description, but red dress, blurry background, long black hair, also black frame glasses, also presenting as an Asian woman. And I'm on top of doing kata, I'm also on the board of New Jersey Theater Alliance. I also have my own LLC called In Between Artistry, where we explore the connection between your own identity with his community as well as your artistry and how you connect all three together. And excited to be a part of this conversation.
Thanks, Kayla. And finally, but not least, hardly, Cassidy. Cassidy,
Hi
yes.
everyone, my name is Cassidy. I use she, her, hers pronoun. For a visual description, I have a blurred background of my living room. I have a dark brown top. I have short black hair, and I'm a young Asian American female. I'm a current second year student at Rutgers pursuing my acting BFA, and I'm a Vietnamese Chinese American actor and a current intern for Kata. And I'm currently working on Hamlet as Rosencrantz, which I'm really excited about because we opened this week. And I'm calling in from the land of the Lenni Lenape, also known as New Brunswick, New Jersey.
We are all well met, y'all. I thought maybe we could start by some storytelling. Sarah really launched us into this beautiful scenario in terms of the context, but I think that there is, this time and this panel also is, really about relationship building. And it really sounded like it came up, this particular group of people, and why we're on the Zoom together. And I'm wondering if I can call in Kayla, Emma, Roger, and Julia to help narrate um, how we're here now.
I wanted to start off. I think it's a really funny start because it was
Yeah.
actually my birthday, and my partner wanted to give me a really thoughtful gift. So he called up all of my heroes in theater, one of which is Roger. And so Roger first sent me a birthday video wishing me a happy birthday and telling me to continue pursuing theater and invited me to connect with him. So I reached out, and that's how I met Kayla and Roger, and I'll let both of you take it from here.
Go ahead,
Well, I
Roger.
have to say, yes, yeah, I have to say that I've always been interested, in the Stanford Asian American Theater Project because that's where I got started into Asian American theater, having helped founded the project as an undergraduate with David. And I've always taken an interest in that. And I have been impressed with what all the work that the project's been done over the last few years. I mean, they do a full season. They do more shows in a school year than some theaters do in the entire season. So I always kept an eye on that. And when we were talking, Kayla and I were, and the rest of the board were talking about trying to get programs to be talking about, kata in the future. A natural for me is to go back to where I came, to my origins, and to go to the student theater group because there's so many of them that have generated so many current artists. Not only Stanford, but UCLA, with Randall Park and Christina Wong and and other folks. Michael Golobko, that's right. I cannot forget him. Um, with Harvard, so it's like it's just a natural for us to be, making sure that the students are there and to make sure they're cared for and to give them guidance that we didn't have when we first started out in the field.
Yeah, and as Emma, Roger, and I were connecting, at the same time, we were thinking about internships because this is our first year of having a kata interns, which are phenomenal. And what better place to do it than, again, as Roger was saying, thinking about his alumni, I thought about mine, particularly because we
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that we're able to give in-person time to these interns. And because I used to live right by Rutgers, thought it'd be wonderful to have that, which is how Rutgers got involved and also created this wonderful conversation that Cassidy was part of, as well as other interns, about the differences in universities, particularly because Rutgers doesn't have a full-time staff in the theater program specifically that identifies as Asian American or MENA or SWANA in that way. And what is it like for those students having to find each other and to navigate not only how to connect, but having to go outside of what their normal schedule is and everything to connect to other folks who look like them to attach that to their artistry. So that brought us into how can kata be a space for that? And then we had these two amazing conversations happening. And while that was happening, I was invited to an event in New York City, which was I think it was like Korea's road show. And Julia, you might know the exact name of that. Where I ran into Julia and we started talking and we got coffee. I'm gonna pass it to Julia to talk about that, but that started a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we were just kind of chatting about, I mean, I was surprised that we didn't know each other already, given the how tight-knit the Asian American theater scene is in New York City. And so I think we were just chatting about our backgrounds, and I was talking about how I think my experiences in college really influenced so much of the work that I'm doing now and kind of opened a lot of doors, but also a lot of doors had to be sort of pried open. And so I think it's sort of just organic. I was talking about how I founded the Asian Student Arts Project. It's called ASAP at Harvard. And then speaking of internships, Grace actually was my wintern this winter. Harvard has a program called think it's called Harvard Wood, and they send students out all over the during winter break. And so I had the great pleasure of having Grace come and and help me out over the winter, supported by Harvard. And we talked a lot about career and being an artist or being in artist adjacent careers. So yeah, I love working with students, giving, as much as advice as hopefully as I can. And so just happy to be here and glad to be with you all.
Oh my gosh, folks, I'm already hearing that, there is this really beautiful complexity that at any given um, age in terms of years, folks are already founders. Folks are already moving and sort of hosting and opening themselves up to mentor others. And I love that. I love clearly, like, the more sort of conventional way that we think of mentorship as something that kind of, you folks we move into in our age. But I think this is going to come up in the panel, the way that the field and the industry is moving. Mentorship could and should come from anywhere and everywhere. There's a kind of sense of confidence and entrepreneurial spirit that all artists sort of need. Um, but I want to see if, and this is actually for everyone, but I know that Julia, this one really resonates with you. It's a combination of actually two questions that have been part of our thinking, which is, how do you identify yourself as an artist and when? Like, what were those kind of formative details that breathed into the spirit of yourself as an artist? And that's one that's for anybody, and anyone can just raise a hand. But I'm really curious to hear similarities and maybe unique elements that come up for you all with that sort of combo question. Yeah, Julia.
Just since you said my
Yeah.
name, I'm just gonna jump in. Um, yeah, so I think for me, I started composing when I was around 6 or 7, writing down my music, and I started writing stories around that age as well. And I always loved theater. I loved music. I did a lot of classical composition and also a lot of songwriting. And then I was writing plays and stories as long as I could remember. But I actually was very, very vehemently opposed to identifying as an artist.
Mhm.
Oh, for most of my life, I was pre-med in college until my junior year of college. And a lot of this was that because I was exposed to so few artists, I didn't really know what it meant to be an artist. And my association with it was someone who maybe didn't have a real job. And I think for a long time, I also was very afraid of sort of sticking out and being different. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, as a third generation Korean person. So was very used to being the only Korean person in the room. And when I got to college, I was really surprised to find that I was sort of still often, most of the time, and kind of always my freshman year, the only Korean person in the theater, and one of very, very few Asian students on campus doing theater, because this was sort of right before the Korean wave. It was before Crazy Rich Asians came out. So my freshman year, I started college and sort of had a big identity crisis and thought, okay, well, what's a career that is respectable, that other
Mhm.
Asian women are doing, and that to me was doctor. It was the only job that I even really could think of, and so I think I was also really sort of motivated by what feels feasible as someone who doesn't have connections in the industry, and also thinking about growing up as a violinist, as a classical violinist, playing in orchestras and chamber music um, and doing solos. I didn't play a single piece of repertoire written by a woman until I wrote my own music. And throughout high school, for the 18 years that I played, the only music I or I played written by women was my own music. And so I think both from being Asian American and female and not seeing that kind of person doing the things that I wanted to do, I was quite afraid. Um, but of course, you can't like stop what you love. And so all throughout college,
Mm.
all throughout my entire life, I was writing musicals. I've been writing musicals since I was 15. And in college, every year I wrote another one until I founded the organization ASAP, and got together with the two other Asian theater kids on campus. And we said, let's make some more of us. And so, but we
Mm.
didn't have any repertoire. So we put on this new show that I gathered two friends who had never seen a musical before, and we wrote a new musical. And through that process, we ended up expanding our club membership to like hundreds of people. And I started getting some career opportunities from people in the local Boston area who came to see the show. I started working with the American Repertory Theater. That's how I got my first commission from ART. That's how I got my first NEA grant. Started working with Central Square Theater and basically branching out from just doing school theater, but it all started with college theater. And then I think by the time I went into my junior year, I had mentors at the ART. And I also had, from that show that I had written, also scored an internship with Min Jin Lee, the author, who was a really important and inspiring mentor to me, who made me realize that you can be an Asian American woman and also be a creative, that people actually exist like that. And so through the encouragement of those mentors and also starting to get some professional work and also just the big thing of having a community, I was finally totally comfortable being an artist and
Mm.
decided I wasn't going to be pre-med anymore, switched out of pre-med, and I have never looked back and never wanted to be a doctor ever since. Not, I love doctors. It's not for me. So yeah, that's kind of my story.
That could be a recruiting tool for like a whole generation of folks who've not necessarily, seen themselves in this path. And I have a feeling that's going to come up with so many different other stories. Others who want to jump in and just share how they, breathe themselves into being as someone who may identify as an artist. Emma and then Grace, yeah.
I have a really similar journey. I just wanted to share that yeah, mine was like it wasn't pre-med or being a doctor. It was very CS oriented. So just to give some background on my family, I think mine was very family focused. But I also did theater from like elementary school. I My first play was The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I had like two lines as soldier number two. And I fell in love with theater since then. So I spent all my time in the theater. I would just like lay on the floor of the black box theater and I like breathe the theater every day after school. I would just hang out there. But for some reason, it was like the same thing as Julia, where in my head, I just never considered myself an artist. And I always just told myself it was a hobby. Like I was just doing it for fun. But then the real work was like doing math and computer science. And my family background is my mom's a CS professor and my dad's a software engineer, and my sister right now is getting her PhD in CS. And so it very much was expected for me to follow the same path, which is why I came to Stanford actually, was to do physics and computer science. So my first 2 years here, I was just doing CSP sets and physics P sets. And then the moment it changed was in sophomore year, I did a play, Man of God, with the Stanford Asian American Theater Project by Anna Moench, and directed by Anna Jung, who's a CATA intern. And it was similar to Julia again, where it was like finding that community of Asian American artists, since I was in a cast with Asian artists who were very sure that they were going to fight for a future in theater. And I had so many late night conversations with them about like why. Like it's not practical. I was basically just espousing everything that people told me, like you're gonna be broke, what's the point? And one of them told me specifically, she was like, it's just something I need to do. It's not like a choice, like, oh, I want to do theater. It's like it's just something my soul needs. And another phrase that stuck with me is no one can give you permission to be an artist. Like it's something you have to find for yourself. In my whole life, I was always looking for permission from like my parents and then also from acting instructors. I feel like I'm always like, am I good enough? But it's like it has to come from within. And after that production and realizing that it was a possibility, like I can see myself in the theater, that's when everything shifted. And I had also an identity crisis for 2 years where it was like, should I do physics or should I do theater? And I also was like, no, I need to be in the theater. Because then, and another thing that confirmed it was like, there a lot of people talk about it like post-show depression, where after you finish a show and you feel completely empty. And that would happen to me where like after I finished Man of God, I went the next week, every time during rehearsals, I would go back to the theater and just sit there and be like, what do I do? And then after another show last year, I got on a bus with no destination, and I just rode on the bus because I didn't know what else to do with my time at night, and I needed to keep filling it with theater. So I think it was just giving myself permission to let go of what everyone told me and just like embrace who I am. And that's when I finally considered myself an artist.
Grace.
Yeah, thank you. That was so inspiring. Lovely. Yeah, I just want to jump on because kind of also speaking to like Julia Ryu, just very appreciative. I think similar to a lot of different stories, I think maybe since I was young, I kind of like knew I liked performing, started off with violin. So I guess I did consider myself an artist like in that aspect, but maybe not in terms of like theater and film. But for me, I don't really think I ever had like a vision of exactly what kind of job I wanted. Like whenever anybody would ask me, I'd always kind of be like, "Oh, I'm not sure yet." But it was kind of this sense of like I knew, like I did research for 2 years or like 1.5 year in high school, and it was like computational biology, and I totally thought I was going to go that direction, but I ended it up not really enjoying it. So I was like, oh, like I definitely need to be in like some sort of job where I'm like very people oriented. I want to be, yapping 24/7, that kind of pacing. And then when I got to college, I thought that would be business. So I applied as econ. I enjoy economics. I actually think it's a great, like, teaches you a lot about how the world works. So I think it was also, very important for me to learn about it. But at the same time, I was kind of missing. I was like, okay, well, like something's not right, right? Like I was trying for like finance consulting, that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, but I'm missing something. And then I heard about Harvard Wood and I was like, oh, like, might as well just like YOLO it out. And I did this program that was, I think, like kind of meant for like juniors and seniors. But I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm gonna just throw my name in the bucket and see what happens. And then I got to have this amazing experience where essentially what Harvard Wood does is it sends a group of students to LA, and then you get to meet with like the big studios, and you get to kind of like talk with a lot of different people about their jobs. So there was the first time where I felt like I was like, wow, like there's like so many different kinds of jobs. I think at least to me, a lot of the industry is a bit like gate kept in a sense. It's like, okay, like you're either going to be like maybe an actor or director, which is like obviously so amazing. And I would also love to do that. But at the same time, I was like, oh, I feel like there's not a clear pathway, if that makes sense. Like it was kind of like, oh, do I just like keep flinging myself at things? But when I did the program, I was like, wow, there's so many opportunities. And I think Harvard also does a good job of kind of promoting the sense of intellectual vitality where I don't always feel like I need to choose between like economics or theater, dance, and media. I felt like really through this process, I was like, okay, well, there's room for both of these interests to come together. And I learned about the job of like being a creative executive that's both extremely creative, has that amazing storytelling part that I was kind of, I think, missing. But at the same time, it's, very structured. You get to work on like the whole production process, which was, a great way to merge both of my interests. And then, of course, I got to work with the amazing Miss Julia Ryu, and she just was the most helpful person ever. She answered all my questions. Honestly, like coming in, I was like, I don't even know what a producer does. I don't know what's like the difference between these like different like mechanisms. And she was so patient, and she also connected me to so many different people who I could coffee chat and learn more. And so it's really opened my eyes and like told me that, yeah, like this is definitely something that's feasible and not something that feels so far away, if that makes sense.
It is just like so viscerally thrilling to hear all of you just take up so much space and just like give yourself just the just entitle yourself to like tell these incredibly rich stories of like um freeing yourself or like listening to the way that you're called to a certain kind of freedom. um uh Anyone else want to jump in? Or I mean, I kind of want to engage you a little bit, Roger, because I want us to feel how different things are now. Which is to say, when I was coming up, um, I was probably the only Asian person. Um, I think there were maybe I could count on one hand. And I came up from Northwestern, which is a really
Yeah.
incredible theater undergraduate program and also
Yeah.
performance studies, where I eventually found myself because it was a place that felt a little bit more imaginative. But the sense of, and we haven't used the word yet, but affinity of like shared identity and coming together around shared experience and identity to have the shorthand where you can sort of, you don't have to represent, right? You don't have to be the
Yeah.
only one to represent that piece. And I will say that, hearing just the three of you talk about um, being able to to be a storyteller in stories that are also authored by Asian American playwrights is astonishing to me because, coming
Yeah.
up, those plays didn't exist, or if they did, they weren't part of a kind of canon, right? And so the idea of what a successful pathway to potentially pursuing a professional career was very strictly assimilated. I would say it was really
Yeah.
about, although, folks have mentioned being excited around, working on Shakespeare. It felt like a double bind. It was like that was a material, but it was really also, I think, a lot of cultural resistance or lack of imagination to see Asian bodies take up space inside of a Shakespeare play, right? So just hearing how those constraints have really are dated is
Yeah.
really exciting to hear. Roger.
No, I was going to mention that, what
Yeah.
Cassie was saying about being being Rosencrantz. It's like that did not happen, when I was an undergraduate. Um, and I guess the point I was going to make is that we had to make our own systems out. We had to make our own structures. We had to make our own institutions outside of the regular ones. That's why the Asian American Theater Company, Theater Workshop, East West Players, and all that got started.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, Dave Wong, is kind of an exception, but he sort of created stuff himself. He created the Stanford Theater Project to do FOB, and he was and he just stepped upward into the existing structure. He got taken up because he was lucky. He found somebody who needed somebody from the Asian community to do that. Um, that wasn't the case for a lot of us because they couldn't take all of us, at the same time. But I think what happened with me is that I'm an example of that, in that I created my own systems. I created my own group outside of the existing, mainstream institutions. I created a student group when I was a graduate student at the University of Washington. I then joined the Northwest Asian American Theater and helped build their systems as a separate organization. And when I moved out from there, I created my own group, sketch comedy group, Porkfield Players, which then became an existing theater group, a legit theater group, quote unquote legit. That's been in existence in the Pacific Northwest for the last 25 years. I think it's been a very, a story that, particularly among my generation, that you had to create um, uh, your own institutions. You had to create your own instruments to be able to do theater because they wouldn't let you, in the door. There's a lot of gatekeeping. So instead of, sitting and, whining about it, we went ahead and created our own stuff. And a lot of us are still here after 30, 40 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I mean, and it's really like, that history of legacy theaters of color, right? East West, Mayi, Natco, Pan Asian, is not a history that is taught in your,
Yeah,
intro to theater class, right? And, that is something that really, comes kind of, I don't know, it's a confusing kind of piece of education. It comes from just sticking around, just like still being one of those last folks kind of standing and insisting, which can be very tricky, right? When there isn't a lot of encouragement necessarily. Either you're not coming from a background. I've heard a couple of folks say, I don't come from a background of artists or art making. So you're really forging that piece on your own within your own sort of maybe family of origin. And that's no joke. That's no joke when like you have a whole family system
yeah,
that wants you to do well, wants to love on you, wants to see you succeed and be happy, and need reassurances
yeah,
that this is a path that is viable, viable to you, viable to your body,
yeah, yeah,
and your cultural experience, because we certainly are still in constantly in a moment where a given experience is something that can be co-opted, something that can be misrepresented. We're still deeply in the thick of that. Um, Folks have also mentioned just kind of offhand different areas, and that's one of the questions that I think that is maybe hot for this group too, around where do you go in the USA? Where you come from, where do you find your people?
yeah,
I come from Los Angeles, California, which was born and raised, but I came to Chicago for Northwestern for undergraduate, but it wasn't really until I was in New York City. And for me, it wasn't necessarily, it was seeing people like Mia Katibak and Ching
yeah,
Valdez Aran, folks who were older than I was. Um, and they had like really made a career. It's like, look,
yeah,
I don't think it was as hard, every sort of generational moment, there's a little bit more breathing room, and to
yeah,
see those people come ahead of you is such a gift,
yeah,
which I think is part of the insistence that you're not alone.
yeah.
But I'm curious about how folks have navigated, or curiosity about where you think you might go, or questions you have about where is that space. Maybe it's geographic, about a professional sort of livelihood for you. Yeah, Cassidy.
For me, I'm actually originally from Irvine, California, which if you know it, you know it's very Asian. So I actually grew up around like surrounded by Asian people, and I didn't really feel like a minority until I came to Rutgers. So it wasn't until I came to Rutgers where I was fully aware of my Asian identity, and it didn't become a big part of my identity until I came here and was finally minority. I'm the only East or Southeast Asian person in my acting company, so I kind of feel that every day in the room. But I've actually been able to find community because I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned
Mm.
is self-advocacy. So I really took it upon myself to like pester my professor, who was also like head of the program, like, hey, like we need to admit more Asian people because I had a really lonely first year experience. Because it's hard to connect with people who have a different cultural experience and identity from you. And luckily, there were more students that were Asian identifying that were admitted into the class below me. So that's where I've been able to find community and be able to like talk about finding identity through theater and just having that experience. And also just a place where it's so different from my hometown.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Other folks about like their journeys through different geographical experiences where you felt held by folks, where you experienced affinity, or maybe it's something that you're still looking for.
Um, I will point out that
Yeah.
for me, for one thing, I don't have a formal theater education. I only took one class in theater. Everything I learned is by actually doing it. And a, B, that's a very valid way of learning your career. Doing it on the job is one of the best ways of getting it into your bones. But I will point out that I have a somewhat unusual career in that I don't do theater I didn't do theater full time. I did it as a part time gig, and I was still able to create institutions and structures where that gave jobs to other Asian Americans in town. And I think that uh, being, no matter what you do, no matter how you do things, getting work out there is what's important, and getting your representation, getting your background, getting the Asians on stage. And for me, getting Asians on stage was the point of what I did, and I think I've been successful in that over my career.
I mean, Roger, I mean, you say that you don't have formal training. I mean, the work that you've compiled in terms of, really insisting on the archive of,
Yeah,
how expansive Asian American theater making has become itself an academic destination. I certainly use it in the way that I program, my classes. And that's it. You keep doing it, and all of a
yeah,
sudden you
yeah.
have an archive of activity where there was none. So you're really raising for me like another question, I think, for the group and friends. Also, we can also come back to things as things kind of occur to you. But this idea of how does your identity, whether it's, Asian American, a Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, Swana, Mina, mixed race, you're saying, I'm hearing you say, Roger, that it was really a definitive part of, your pursuit around art was like your
Yeah.
identity, a kind of, dare I say, like a mission to see Asian people on stage. Um, and I really want to open up this idea that, like, that's one part of us. There's so many other aspects of us. And I wonder about, I'll speak for myself, my racial identity is always relevant. Is it the one that I'm always leading with at any given point? Gosh, maybe it's my
Yeah.
gender. Maybe it's, um, maybe it's my class, y'all, because that is certainly something that, kind of really shapes how I move through the world. So, the question is, how does your identity shape the roles, projects, or communities you want to work in? And I think that actually really resonates. I think, if I'm not mistaken, with you, Cassie, I don't know if you want to speak to that or if you want to just reiterate that question. Yeah.
It actually my grappling with my identity has actually strengthened my passion for theater. I really got into it because I couldn't really see myself doing anything else and being happy. And because I came to Rutgers and experienced being a minority and like that need for inclusivity and diversity, it has given me more like of a goal to work through for my art. And I experience a lot of like grappling with my identity. I don't have a lot of opportunity to do that at Rutgers, where I have to
Mm,
go out of my way to find plays where I can do scenes in class because I can't do a scene with another Asian person because there's no one to do it with. And I've actually found a lot of community in Kata because of Circle where I can
yeah.
like ask questions and everyone is so nice and willing to like offer resources so that I was able to find a scene that I could actually do for class and explore my identity. But other than that, I've only been able to do scenes where it's like I'm playing a white person or someone that's not ethnically specific. So that's kind of been my experience at Rutgers. But yeah, being Asian American definitely fuels my art now, and it feels like it's the thing
Mm,
most.
mm, yeah. Others who want to weigh in on where they are, where they have been with that question.
Sophie, if I can add, I think as an adoptee, that question of
Yeah,
identity is from like day one of my own
yeah,
existence. It's like,
yes,
what are you? So even, and I've known because my parents obviously identify as European white looking, presenting. So like having an Asian baby since day one, there's race is a whole thing they have to deal with up front. And I think my whole entire life, up until actually getting ED at Kata, or even getting the job at Kata, was this question of what does it A mean to be Asian? B, what does it mean to be
yeah,
adopted or Korean? And then what does it mean to
yeah.
be American? And as I grew in my artistry, as I grew as my leadership, I went through this multiple things. What does it mean to be that in US base of New York, Jersey, going to Rutgers, to then going to London, getting my master's in there and having to do a whole entire walkout because they didn't consider me a person of color sometimes, and having to
Right,
navigate what that meant to
right.
be an Asian American person advocating for BIPOC at the time being the terms that they used, um, students to have the education and to be existent in the European British theater scene to then decide I'm going to move back to the US, to then decide I don't know anything about Korean culture. I'm going to pick up during COVID and move to Korea to figure that out. Has been like a
Right.
whirlwind. And I think very similar to Roger, even though I have the educational training of the degrees, I think a lot of my background of the arts and how I hold the leadership position in Kata and all those like Sophia, you and I at Art Equity and just Nicole Brewer
Hmm.
too has been because of the experiences. It's been because of having to advocate how to break down systems, being like the system doesn't fit me, and this ambiguity of fluidity of identity because it always
Yeah,
changes. It changes where I am. Like I am
yeah.
very safe right now being in Korea because I can be Korean American and I can hold that identity in the way I want to without being questioned.
Mm, mm,
And I feel
mm.
comfortable like that. But the moment I pick up and go to New Jersey, questions are going to come up. I have to put on different armors. I have to put different things on, and like it changes. And that's a part of, I think, as I navigate what is that like when issues come up within context, thinking where are you located? What are the
Yeah.
community around you? What is their analysis of their own identities? What is their analysis of what that I've been playing with this terminology or like the analysis of like acknowledging their perceived notation or whether it's nostalgia of the country or the time capsule of their experience of the culture, whether they identify in that way or different, and then what that experience is put on your body in that given location and how you have to feel and navigate that and have that communication, whether that is agreeable to that narrative or not. I think is a lot of part of the work that I'm constantly dealing with in every single project, no matter where I am.
Oh my gosh, that distinctive complexity around the diaspora of Asian people who've been adopted, particularly into white or European families, is real, is really real, because then it creates the possibility that there is actually like an art making sort of, path to follow, and, depending on how you create family in that way. There are also just questions about like language, right? And the sort of, I'm just going to say it like Asian enough, not Asian enough, too much, all of those different perceptions that are external to you, but become very, very um, scrutinizing because what we're doing is creating public storytelling, right, on our bodies. So this kind of externalizing, we both invite it, but we can't necessarily calibrate the accuracy of it. Yeah, Cassidy.
I just want to add that I'm Vietnamese and Chinese. I don't speak either language, and because I grew up
Yeah,
in a really Asian area, I actually grew up being called like whitewashed. And like all my
yeah,
friends would like speak their native languages at home and I didn't. And then I came to
right.
Rutgers and all of a sudden it's like, wow, you're the most Asian person I've ever met. And it's like people look at me, it's like I'm like the Asian one in the company because I'm like the loudest about it and because I have to be. But interesting to grapple with that, especially through art, because a lot of the times I think about it, I'm like, do I get to tell this story? Like, am I Asian
Yeah.
enough to advocate for this? But it's like someone has to, and it doesn't make me any less Asian that I can speak a language, or if I'm like however much I'm
Yeah.
exposed to the culture. And I've actually a lot of my Asian freshmen are also Asian, and they have this battle within them too, is like because they're white and Asian, like do they also get to tell like advocate and like tell these stories
Yeah.
because like some of them are like, I'm a little more white passing and I don't know if I can. It is such an interesting diaspora to me about identity because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, we are all Asian.
It's the word for me that's really helpful in this moment is analysis. And you said that, Kayla, right? An analysis. And I'm gonna invoke Carmen Morgan. Get yourself an analysis, right, around how you identify, and how you are perceived, and where is your personal humanity inside of that, both as like a person in the world, but also as an artist who has every right to imagine other worlds, not just yourself, right? You're like, or so there's so much possibility around that, in terms of sharing analysis, because these questions aren't necessarily new or unique, but they are evergreen. They still, because there's so much around, I would say mainstream culture around like pop culture and just the way that certain ethnicities and sort of the kind of K-pop and sort of oh my gosh, those two folks who play hockey. You know what I'm talking about. There's this like moment, right? A moment of things that are trending, right? And how do you navigate contending with how you fit in with that particular wave, right? How you are um, all of a sudden, very, very become very, very sort of interesting to folks, right? Depending on what's popular in that particular moment. And to what degree does that actually even resonate with who you are in your artistry? Those are all different pieces that having community can help sort of like stabilize you and remember yourself to yourself. Right. One of the questions that came up in preparing for this piece is, how are you finding community and affinity, and are you still in search of it, and what does that mean to you?
Um, I know for
Yeah.
myself as one of the uh, I hate to use the term, but elders and leaders in the community.
Icons.
Yeah, okay, icons is better, but for me that's a certain amount of responsibility to make sure that
Yeah.
I am not gatekeeping people. I want to make sure that everybody's story is told, and I know in particular people with mixed race identity has had problems with both with the mainstream society not knowing what to do with them, and with the Asian community for not accepting them. Uh, to be able to find their place in the community. And I think I tried to make sure that those in particular, those folks, are welcome. They are always in consideration to be an artist, as a screen, as a playwright, as a designer, as a director, as an actor. Um, Similarly, there are some people who their Asian identity is not particularly important, but it's still a major factor
Yeah.
in their writing. Is like they will include Asian characters, but their ethnicity is not is not a major theme that the play goes around. That's also important for us to be able to put out there and promote and uplift. So, and I
Yeah.
find that that's part of my responsibility um, as a so-called icon, to be able to say yes, get those out there, make those things heard, make that part of the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Emma.
I wanted to add to this theme of uplifting now that I'm a senior. I think I that's another question. Like freshman and sophomore year, I was really struggling with finding my place, especially in the TAPS department, which there's like no Asian American faculty, and in general, it's a very predominantly white space. But now that I'm a senior and I've sort of like proved myself and built my
Mhm.
space here, now reaching out to underclassmen and very intentionally making sure they feel included. And Cassidy mentioned something very similar with like talking to the head and making sure to recruit Asian American actors. And it's the same thing here where, like, for example, I recently joined a project and it was a very predominantly white space. And in the very first session, I just wanted to advocate for everyone. So I shared that, like, if anyone was feeling alone or struggling, to not feel like they have to struggle alone and they can reach out to this whole ensemble here. And I think specifically being a person of color and saying that in a very white space it was very, I didn't explicitly talk about race, but I was very intentionally reaching out to those who are like, especially in smaller roles and a person of color, where a lot of the leading roles were white. I was like telling them that they should make their space here and that like they could talk to me.
Mhm.
And then also, I think really small gestures I'm working towards as well. Like, for example, like if someone is filling in like a high five or like, oh, you can do it. Like small things that are showing like, oh, I see you. Like we're in this space together and I see you in this space as who you are and not like the token black person, for example. And just I think also I'm thinking a lot about like I think about the Asian American experience a lot because I'm like in Asian AATP, but I've talked to a lot of other people of color who had similar struggles with the department, and I didn't realize that because I'd never reached out to like branch all of the different minority groups, and realizing that they have very similar stories was very fulfilling, and like it kind of opened my eyes of like, oh, we have a whole coalition of artists together and we should uplift each other's stories, like collaborate with other like Black Stage here also creates a lot of amazing work. Like how can we support you and how can you guys support us? And how can we make space for all of us?
That's so thrilling to hear you say it. I mean, it was coming up a little bit with what Kayla was mentioning around art equity, but that idea of finding affinity inside of the larger global majority coalition is, I think, just profound, a profound way out of this kind of sense of institutional, but certainly isolation and institutional minoritizing, right? Um, I want to say, in fact, this is something that, maybe Roger, you can help me with, but I want to say that, David Henry Hwang is really kind of, this really foundational voice in Asian American theater, first found advocacy within, I want to say, the National Black Theater. It's one of the first places that really championed him.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
I think
right?
that's true. Yeah. And he was
So
yeah, he's very, very, aware and always tried to build his connections with fellow black artists and all that, even at Stanford. So, and of course he's continued that, in his professional career.
So that is, from, I would say for me, from a both a political sense and a creative sense, those archives of coalition at the earliest levels are so powerful for us to know as a community, right? Particularly when we're in this moment where it seems like, anything related to equity and diversity are kind of being, hammered and, that we are actually abundant and plentiful. We have partners. We have partners. Um,
If I
Friends,
could add to
yes.
that,
Kayla,
Sophia, I was like, my whole entire theater career is I'm
yes,
standing on the shoulders of particularly Black women and Black like theater leaders. Because as
that's
an
right.
adoptee, like, and like, I'm gonna be fully transparent, a space like Kata was not at all open for me. Like, because I didn't feel comfortable, A, with myself. B, because the conversation of how Asian are you? Are you Asian at all? Was the first thing I always was met in affinity spaces. So being able to have like leaders like Marshall Jones, Carmen Morgan, Nicole Brewer, Kara McCord, like all these phenomenal Black leaders inviting me into those spaces to just be, you are a person of color. That's enough. You can explore your leadership, explore your identity here. And as I shift and change and crossroads, I remember going to CG and just sitting next to these phenomenal leaders who were just like, who are you today? That's great. How would you like me to
Mm,
meet you? Um, really allowed me to have my leadership and ownership of my identity, but be able to walk into space that I'm now the first ED of Kata as an adoptee to be like, I can claim my identity. And I know what that means for me. And to be able to,
mm,
again, pass on that conversation to others, but knowing that I'm standing on the leadership and solidarity work that has happened over the years, which is phenomenal. I know we talked
yeah,
about this at the Art Equity alumni of how much
yeah,
like that means to me and making sure that we open spaces. So like
that's
we
right.
are doing solidarity work here at Kata. And what does that mean to continue that coalition building?
Yeah. Um, oh my gosh, such a critical piece to breathe into the space. Folks, are there questions that you feel like you want to bring to this group? I want to invite those voices in. And maybe to someone in particular, it can be as specific as you wish. Take up the space.
I actually have a question, which I'm gonna, sorry, Julia, I'm gonna toss you in here. I think this is something that the generation
Yeah.
younger are having to navigate. Um, how, as you, because I know you got went viral, is which is how you got your agent. How are you navigating a lot of the social media aspect of the industry now?
Yeah, absolutely. I get this question a lot. Um, so I think a lot of people ask me, do you think it's absolutely necessary to be famous on social media or to have a social media presence in order to be a successful artist? Um, I don't think that it is just because I know people who are rising into, artistry without having a social media platform. That being said, I often equate it to like what I envision it would be like to have a famous parent in the industry. So having a blue check mark and a big following will get you into rooms that you aren't necessarily in. It will get you opportunities you wouldn't necessarily get, and it will maybe have people notice you in a way that they wouldn't otherwise. But it is absolutely not the only way to have a career in as an artist. I think for me personally, my journey, for those who I guess don't know, is basically I, as I mentioned throughout college, was doing a lot of theater, writing theater, though I was pre-med. By this point was a bit later, but I had started essentially working with American Repertory Theater from the organizations that through that show that I'd written my sophomore year, the organization that I founded, and actually most of my professional opportunities came from the work that I was doing either with ASAP or with ART or with Minj and Lee or with sort of those career opportunities. But I think for me, what really solidified all of this into a tangible career in the arts was my senior spring. A musical that I had written, I posted one of the songs from it online, and that song ended up going super viral. And for the years leading up to posting that song, I had sort of been making little strides and getting my name out there. I'd worked on a couple ART shows at that point and some local theater productions. And starting sophomore summer, one of my mentors at ART started sending my work to an agent at CAA, who is now my agent. But it actually took 2 years of her sending my work and then that viral push to get him to sign me. And at that point, there was sort of interest from multiple agents coming in. And so I think that also kind of helped push it over the edge. And so I think what like a viral moment can definitely get you into a room, get you attention, but unless you've sort of been, you definitely have to be doing the work to get to there as well. And have the what was great is that I could then, when the viral moment came, because you never know when that lucky moment happens, to be really prepared for it and say, okay, well, here's all of the work that I've been doing, so that when that agent knocks on your door and says, hey, what have you got? You don't just have one 40-second video. You have 5 years worth of material that you can share. So I think I really just see social media as a tool. I don't see it as my job. I use it to share about the projects that I'm working on, to share about the events that I'm doing. I use it as an advertising tool a lot of the time. And then every now and then for fun, I might do something on it for fun, but I only really use it when I have something to share. And I have very strong boundaries for what I post on social media and the ways that I use social media. I also have my public account, and then I have a completely different account for people that I know in real life, socially. And that also really helps keep that boundary. And to me, those are really important to be able to separate work and life. So, yeah, I hope that helps.
Um, just an incredible story, Julia. I feel like you've just like kind of just cracked the surface of, I mean, but that sense of being ready, what you can actually kind of have a sense of agency and control over is to stay ready. We do have, and I'm so glad that Cassidy's back. We lost her for a second. Friends, we just have a few more minutes left. I'm wondering if we could just hear from each person, if you like, if this is really a resonant question, but just a few words that you might share with your younger self. I see Grace and then maybe Cassidy. Yeah, just
Yeah, I guess
unmute.
I will start. I will say, I've been, very like attentively listening. I think it's because I'm quite early on, just kind of still figuring it out as like a sophomore in college.
Yeah.
But I think, the fact that I'm even able to be on here with you guys and even be on like a panel, like what? This is crazy, is something that I think my younger self would be like, oh, wait, no way. Like, this is so interesting. So I would probably just say something like, you don't have to have everything figured out. You don't even like I don't even know exactly what direction in the arts I want to be going. I just know, okay, I want to be in a storytelling space, whatever medium that may be, maybe it'll come to me, maybe I'll find it along the way. But I think, I heard this quote that was like, you underestimate or you overestimate what you can do in like a few days or a few years, but you underestimate how much you can accomplish in so like decades. You have your whole entire life to build something that's meaningful. And, it's important, obviously, to be going after it and be intentional. But, part of the process is just exploring. And um,
Mm,
to me, I think something that I've learned is there's not really anything that's quote unquote like really a waste of time. It's more just like even if you're not exactly like where like exactly what you want to be doing doesn't mean you can't be like learning something or trying to build like some sort of transferable skills that like Julia mentioned, when that opportunity comes, when it's like, okay, this is, exactly the perfect thing that I've been waiting for, you've built up those skills maybe from other things that have been preparing you. So, trust the process and keep going. Sorry, that was
love
long,
it.
but yeah.
Love it, Grace. Other words that you would nourish your younger self. Yeah, Julia. And maybe Emma and then Cassidy. Yes. Yeah.
I always have a hard time with this question because in my mind, I'm like, is it like the space-time continuum? If I go back in time and I tell my past self, then do I not make the same mistakes? Because I actually think that mistakes are really important to make and that you only learn by making mistakes and by doing things and trying, taking risks and then making that mistake. And then, of course, you have no way of knowing that that's a mistake until you do it. So I'm always like, okay, well, is it gonna change the past? But if it's not gonna change the past, or I guess maybe this would be advice that I could give without changing the space-time continuum, I would probably say something like, just keep doing things. Don't be don't take do take the risks. Do the things, but trust your gut. When you have a gut
Mm,
feeling, whether that's a good feeling or a bad feeling, trust your gut and then stay active. And
mm.
all of those mistakes that you made, you will learn critical lessons and then you will be better off for having made the mistakes.
Yes. And with Julia's caveat of not disturbing the time-space continuum, what would you say?
Oh,
Um,
like if I could
oh
just
no, no.
oh.
I love your setup. I think we should all adopt that. So
Oh.
Emma, Cassidy, yes.
I had a similar thought as Julia because I think that if I told my younger self this advice, I would not listen to it. But so instead, I would just pose a question and let them figure it out themselves.
Mm,
But I think I would ask them, who are you doing it for? Like all the work you
mm,
put in, is it for your family? Is it for your reputation? Is it to
mm,
maximize utility in the world? I used to be very like efficiency driven robot, like I got to make an impact. But it's like then you're living your life for impact in the world. Or and then there was a period of time where it was like every decision I have to make has to be the most moral. But then I'm just living like a moral robot doing it for the gods or whatever that means. But like you have one life to live. What are you going to do with
mm.
your one shot at this? Oh, it's like Hamilton. Yeah, you have one shot.
Why not? Why not? Yeah, Cassidy.
I think what I would tell my younger self is something I'm still working on now because we're always in process is like take up more space. I feel
Mm,
like I have spent so much of my life waiting for permission or being like, now's not the right time. I don't really know what I'm doing, so I can't really go for it. But like waiting for permission to pursue theater or do more advocacy work at Rutgers. A lot of it like there's no point in waiting. Like and now I have regrets of like I should have started this sooner or like what
mm,
am I waiting for? I should just do it and just to stop being scared and to take more risks and look for more opportunities as they come and take them.
mm, mm. Such powerful. I'm gonna take all that advice, actually, right here, right now. Kayla, did you have a thought?
Yeah, my
Oh, Kayla, I think you might be frozen.
different myself to take care of your body.
Okay,
Can you
you're
hear me?
back.
Okay. I was like, mine's a little bit more personal, because I'm a doer to begin with, and I have had the audacity in particular things. So for me, it's more of tell my younger self to rest and take care of your body and that you deserve rest. Because I think that is something I'm still struggling with, is allowing myself to just be and not have to be
Mm,
productive. And I
mm,
think the impact of not having that is something that my now being my 30s, my body's feeling and having to take care of,
yeah.
which I wish I did when I was younger.
Mm. Received. Roger.
Um, I have to say that what I would say to my younger self is that what you do is enough. I
Mm,
get, and it's like I occasionally get the feelings of like, oh, I'm not really an artist. I'm not really doing this, but no, what I
yeah.
do is enough, and it's made a difference. So being able be having that confidence and that um, oh, you have to have a little bit of swagger as you go through artistic life, and say
Mm,
yes, do that.
mm.
What we do is fun, and what we do makes a difference. So, and
Oh,
it has.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that just it's something that, Grace, I think it's really what you just said about being on this panel. I just want to acknowledge so many institutions would say that, a kind of intergenerational panel where we're kind of all here as peers, y'all, is really radical. We're not here as a kind of hierarchy. We're not, we're actually like co-teaching the space. Um, and that is something that did not exist, when I was coming up at all. And to sort of not only feel accompanied by folks, but feel accompanied by folks who are really receiving and giving, that everyone here has I just love this phrase of having younger and older mentors. Like we all need them. There's been just enormous words of wisdom that have come from absolutely everybody on this panel, so I just want to acknowledge both like the brilliance of that and also like the systemic disruption of that, right? um if that makes sense. We have just maybe a little bit more time left. If there's something like burning that you feel like, "Arr, this is your moment." Yeah, Emma.
I just wanted to, Kayla said the word audacity, and that is like my favorite word because I think it takes a lot of audacity to be an artist. And it goes to all of our conversation about like not needing permission, just do it. And I feel like as an Asian American, there's like a lot of stereotypes around what that means of like
Mm,
staying silent and like the model minority myth of like you work through the system and you get there. Like you stay silent, you do your job, and you hope that someone's going to see your hard work and give you
mm,
permission to like get your promotion or take the space. But I think that's why the word audacity resonates so much with me because I used to be very like teacher's pet, like very good girl of like I
mm,
want someone to see me and then I want them to uplift me. But now it's like the world isn't like that. Like you really have to fight for your own space. So like have the audacity, just show up in the room and be like, I'm here and I'm good. And it
mm,
has to like no one can tell you you're good. Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to
mm.
call out that word.
Oh my goodness. Oh, Grace, yeah. I see a hand there.
Yeah, I think along with that and along with like everybody else kind of talking earlier about also prioritizing rest and that you're doing enough. I feel like
Mm,
all throughout
mm,
high school I was extremely restless. I was like, oh, I gotta do all these competitions and join every single club ever. And like it, maybe that was part of the reason I got in Harvard. Who knows? Like I haven't read. But at the same time, I think a mindset shift that I have acquired just coming here is really being like intentional and being like, um like yeah, like you need like it's good to make your own space, but at the same time it's like you're already like you don't have to prove yourself to like be somebody in the future. Like you already are somebody, right? I think just like taking a moment and
mm,
just being like the fact that we're like all here and just like living and being alive and just like breathing and just meeting all these different people and being able to live such an amazing life that we're able to even engage in this kind of storytelling. And that in itself is something that I think that I've kind of been like, oh wow, like I think it doesn't like obviously that's not to say like go chase after your dreams with full force, but it's also like you kind of have that stability that's like, okay, well, I'm doing this not because I feel the need or like some kind of insecurity to prove myself. It's like, there's like maybe something I want to say or something I want to contribute to. So instead of it feels more additive to me at least. So
mm.
If
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
if
Yeah,
I could,
Cassidy. Oh, and mhm.
I was gonna say bring in and I'm Sophia, you might have to correct my thing. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. I believe that was an art
Yes.
activity. Is that right?
Yes. And I really feel like that comes from like deep in the Black community. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Absolutely. Yeah. Cassidy.
Yeah, something that really resonated with me from what Kayla said, and also what we've been in conversation about, is when you do this type of like advocacy work in spaces where you're a minority, you have to really make sure you're taking care of yourself and your mental health. And I feel like
Mm, mm,
when we
mm,
first talked about that, I kind of took it and I was like, ah, I'll be fine. I feel great right now. I'll be, and then things got more overwhelming. And the more I thought, the more time you spend thinking about it and thinking about doing it and then doing it, it gets really overwhelming. And sometimes it feels like there's so many thoughts and dreams racing through my head. And sometimes I feel guilty. It's like, am I doing enough?
mm,
And I just feel like the fact that we're all on this panel and we're all contributing and having these hopes and dreams is already a lot more than like we could hope for.
mm. I'm so grateful that you just invoked very clearly the idea of mental health, Cassidy. Roger, you mentioned Christina Wong, whose work, if you don't know yet, you must. It will just, breathe spirit and life into you. Um, I'm just also reflecting that this panel is primarily, thank you, Roger, for being here, absolutely, but femmes, Asian American women, trying to make their way in the theater. And, Christina Wong's one of her pieces really unpacks the mental health pieces that really, really lay heavy on Asian American women bodies. And there's something to that. There's something really powerful that so just, acknowledge that is real. And that is a thing. Um, and here everyone is, coming together and demanding more space. How about that? Um, so I wonder actually if that's where we can leave it, y'all, to be continued. So deeply appreciative of each and every one of you and just like the honor of getting to know you. We need you. We need your leadership. We need your artistry, your ingenuity. We need you rested and we need you whole. Um, with that, I'm going to pass it back to Sarah.
Amazing. Thank you so much to all of our panelists and to Sophia for hosting this conversation. I'm also just feeling so inspired by just listening to everybody. So if you would like to continue discussing with these folks, this amazing conversation, we do encourage you to become a Kata member, because your membership grants you access to our circle page where you can ask each other questions and continue this conversation and find resources. I know Cassidy mentioned something about that as well. But truly, this conversation starts here, but it does not end here. So we encourage you to reach out. You can find more on our website, and members also get exclusive access to some programming and also access to our National Healthcare Benefits Program. So our next event is on May 11th. It will also be live streamed here on HowlRound. That will be another Kata Conversations Diaspora Stories. And we will be bringing together artists and activists and organizations who have shaped Mina and Swana theater legacy in this country and continue this conversation about what a solidarity looks like in this present moment. So we hope you will join us. Again, thank you to our panelists and to Sophia. And I'm going to pass it to Kayla for one last moment.
Thank you. Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Sarah. Also want to uplift, if this conversation was helpful, if you're like, how do I get involved? You want to talk to these amazing folks, or you're like, hey, I'm part of a university and I don't have the support, or I have so much support and want to give resources and like platform knowledge, please reach out to us. You can email us at info@kata.net. But also, we were having, Emma, you might need to remind me, I think it's October or September, or Sarah. We're also having a gathering. I know one of you are a part of it because Emma asked for this. So thank you so much for this. That is going to be an open space for university students to gather and just connect. And that is a space that Kata staff as well as board will be able to be there to support. But we want to continue this growing, connecting, and building community within the university space, and then continue this intergenerational conversation and resources and support. So please stay tuned to that as well. And just thank you for all the lessons. Like I've learned so much. And also, as Sophia was saying, this commitment to what does it mean to be a leader and how we can have this shared leadership and also being feeling like we're learning and growing from multiple different ages and different generation and across countries, across communities, across places, and just really thankful for all of this and the collective work. So thank you again for being part of this conversation or building, dreaming, and creating together, and looking forward to that for the months ahead. So thank you all so much.